everyone, it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. I am excited as always because in today's video we have another reading vlog. I know I've been doing a lot more sit down videos on my channel over the past few weeks, so it's so fun for me to spend this more like casual reading time with you all. You can see from the title of this video that I decided to do I read 7 books in 7 days. I did the same challenge last year when it first started to gain some traction. I just think it's a really fun way for me to minimize my screen time and focus on a hobby that I love so much, but also my TBR is out of control. So I wanted to focus on reading as many books as I could over the span of a week. But by this point, you already know I failed. I failed at this challenge. Listen, life happens. And although I did read 7 books in about the span of 7 days, you'll see throughout this video what I mean when I say I failed at this challenge. So without further ado, I'm gonna throw you back to the version of me that started this video and I'll let her take it away. Okay, yes, I know it's dark as hell, but I'm not gonna change that. What I wanna tell you is that the first book I'm gonna start with is Daphne, largely because it's 8 p.m. and I want to read a book every day this week. So because I already started this a few days ago and I'm almost 100 pages in, finishing Daphne tonight is going to be feasible within the next few hours. This is about a girl who's a basketball player, and her team has this legend that they tell that if you think about Daphne or you speak her name, she'll appear and she'll kill you with her bare hands. And that's what's going on, except that I believe a metaphor for OCD, and the characters in here all struggle with anxiety in some way or another as well. The people actually die. People are legitimately dying, and I did not expect that. That's not a spoiler, I don't believe, because it's a horror book and the general premise is Daphne coming and killing people. It took me a second to get into the writing style for this because I was what's going on? It's a little bit detached, but the way that the author is describing anxiety and OCD, I just am really resonating with. I've mentioned before that I am someone who struggles with anxiety. I have an anxiety disorder. I struggle with obsessive compulsive tendencies. And one of the things that our main female character in this book struggles with is that when she is in this super high anxious state after people start dying, she finds herself asking questions and kind of playing this game, and everything suddenly became, if this happens, then this is going to happen. And if this person raises their hand before this person, then they're not going to solve the murder. Things like that. And she finds herself trapped in this thought cycle. And specifically for me, that is often how my obsessive compulsive tendencies show up for me. It's that kind of betting thing, predicting, finding answers and questions where they don't actually exist. I can appreciate that in this story, and I'm really grateful that it's not super heavy-handed in my mind. The main reason why I put off reading this book for so long was specifically because I worried that it would trigger those thought patterns within me, but it's not, so I'm really relieved to say that. I am enjoying it, but it did remind me of another book, which I'm not going to tell you which book it reminds me of because it would spoil what's going to happen potentially, but because it reminded me of this other book, I feel like I know who Daphne is throughout this. I want to tell you who I think it is so bad, but it will spoil it. But just know that there's a character in here who told the story in a very fucking weird way. And I was I got my eyes on you, but I also have my eyes on another character. And I think that this other character is just as likely to be the Daphne of this story. So I'm going to finish that tonight, and I'll see you with another super fucking dark update because it's nighttime. Hello. Welcome to day 1. Okay, besties, it is the next day. As I showed you last night, I did in fact finish Daphne last night, but I was too tired to give you the update. To be honest with you, I'm fucking tired now. I need to take my vitamins, and I keep forgetting to do that. So I'm absolutely exhausted, but I'm torn about what to rate this because I finished the story and I was invested with the story, and there were interesting things that were happening as well as really, really scary moments. I won't spoil anything for you, but there's a point where someone's under the bed in this story, and ew, it gave me such an ick. But also the way that you come to understand more about Daphne and who she truly was in this town. I did not expect that. But Daphne's story also gave me feelings, which I think was intentional because it's horror, right? It's horrifying. I felt like I didn't fully understand what was happening. And there's a point where you find out like what's going on with Daphne. And I don't think that was developed well at all. I think that there needed to be more said about what the author was trying to say. And I'm being very, very vague here. So just warning now, I'm going to talk about spoilers now. So, Daphne, I believe, was summoned by someone. And this someone, I won't tell you who it is because I don't want to fully spoil it, turned out to be one of the children that would have been a victim of Daphne. However, she escapes and she ends up in this situation. I think it's Stockholm syndrome almost. She believes herself to be in love with Daphne, which is why she brings Daphne back in this way and is obsessed with her in the way that she is. And the author alludes to the trauma of that, and I'm getting the really strong sense that it's actually a metaphor for something, the way that we project our trauma onto other people, how that's not resolved. But it wasn't done in a way that's clear enough, like what the intention was. So when I ended up reading that reveal, I was just like, ew. You were trying to say something, but you didn't say that thing. And then as the reader, I'm there like, what are you trying to say? I don't understand. So that made me uncomfortable. Spoilers end here. I do, as I mentioned, find myself relating to the anxiety aspects of this story and the way that Kit's anxiety manifests and how that can kind of venture into OCD territory. And I mentioned I found that very relatable, and I read the author's note at the end of this where Josh Malerman talks about his struggles with anxiety and how in many ways, Kit's story and the way that she deals with anxiety are things that have personally happened to him and how he has dealt with those things. So that makes sense to me why I could find this exploration of anxiety to be very authentic to the experience of those who struggle with anxiety. I don't know. I'm not going to like leave a final rating, but know that it's somewhere between like 2.5 and 3 stars for me.
It's totally the next day and not 2 weeks later. But hello, besties. I'm in the park and I wanted to update you because the second book that I decided to read for day 2 is actually An American Werewolf in Space. I know I said I was going to read Swift and Saddled, but I decided instead that I wanted to do a dedicated cowboy romance reading vlog. So that's what I'm doing instead. I hope the audio quality is okay. I'm really sorry. This mic sometimes is good and sometimes is not. So we're going to deal with it if it is not. But An American Werewolf in Space is a alien romance about this woman who gets abducted by aliens, and she's abducted with a bunch of other women and they end up on this spaceship. And it's very clear that these aliens are going to sell them in some kind of like trafficking. The aliens that kidnap them are like described as like these really skinny shark like things. And what they don't realize is that the woman that they kidnapped, one of them, our heroine of this story, is actually a werewolf because they don't know that werewolves exist. So when they're on the spaceship, she goes into her werewolf form and kills everyone on the ship. And when she is trying to find a way like off the ship or trying to find a way to navigate the ship back to Earth, she comes across this other prisoner, and this other prisoner is scary as fuck. I believe he's described in a way that I can't really visualize, but I've heard kind of like Venom, but bigger and with tentacles and multiple tails and very not human. And our heroine, she sees him and she's like, this thing is freaky and scary and he would kill me in 2 seconds. But she's feeling, a little tinkle of something, and she frees him because she gets a translator and realizes like he is very much willing to help him. He is actually the general of this army. There are kids running around playing, so I'm going to be mindful of not traumatizing the children. So when she actually frees him, she ends up smelling him, and his scent triggers her like mating instinct. She realizes that this is her mate. And as a shifter, she doesn't call herself a werewolf, but obviously werewolf is in the title. She's a shifter. She recognizes that this is her mate, her one true mate. And she's a little freaked out by that, but the mating bond doesn't work that way. It like instantly floods her body with hormones. So all she thinks is, I have to complete the mating bond. Like no one else can be around him. This is my man, my man, my man. And she thinks that like he doesn't know, but there's this really fun scene later on in the book where she gets a translator and like literally like a translator chip in her ear, and he's like, I knew the whole time I could smell you. and I was literally laughing my ass off. And what I would say is that this also has like very dark humor moments, which if you are new here, I don't typically love dark humor in my romances, alien sci-fi romances, but our werewolf character is scary as fuck. Like, this isn't major spoilers for the story because the summary is that she kills everyone on the ship, all the people who kidnapped her and the other women on the ship, and ends up with her mate. But she's scary. She's scary, and she's not human, even in the way like a werewolf romance would be. When she kills everyone on the ship, she eats them. She eats them. And we see that really vividly on the page because she describes eating their organs and literally going for their soft bellies. And the other women are like turning green and like, ew. But to her, she's like, it's just food. Like, they have different customs. I'm like, gross. So that was freaky. But what makes me laugh is that she, even like having this mating bond with our Venom character person who's not Venom. Like, if Venom was even more twisted and weird looking and had three tails and tentacles, and it was just something else entirely, like not human at all, she's still scared of him. But she's like, my man, my man, my man. He's so scary. But like, look at how well he can protect me because that's how the mating bond works. And regardless of the fact that I quite literally cannot picture anything else because this man is distinctly nothing like a human, he's actually very sweet, which is pretty on par with like sci-fi romances and monster romances. I would say this one kind of straddles the line between both because this man could most certainly be classified as a monster in the monster romance category. And he's protective and he's smart and he's kind. And whenever he's speaking to her, you can just see like how much he values her and their mating bond, and like feels so lucky that she was the one to find him and that they are mates. There's lots of voyeurism in here. And it's lots of come here, bring that to here. If you pick up what I'm putting down. Are the sex scenes good? Yeah. Yeah. But would I recommend this to anyone? Not necessarily, besties. Just because he's very much not human and she very much has not human tendencies. That's what's happening right now. And we're in this scene where they're trying to survive in this cave, which introduces us to the voyeuristic aspects of this story. I'm just like, I don't think I like the voyeurism. It's not personally my thing, but like, if that's your thing, they do not care what they be fucking. Come here, bring that to here is the ultimate goal of this story. So we'll see where it's going to go. I know it's going to get very chaotic and dramatic and tense because, of course, they were captives. They were all captives and they were trying to escape with their lives. So I'm going to finish this book. I should finish it today, and that will be day 2 down. So I'll see you with my final thoughts.
Okay, besties, it is nighttime. I did officially finish American Werewolf in Space, and I really loved it, realizing you can see the microphone. Give me a second here. I did finish this, and I really enjoyed it. I was expecting like a smutty little alien romance, which in my first update, you can see that it did start off as a smutty little alien romance, but then it went full sci-fi. I'm talking war, intergalactic battles, massive advanced spaceships, lots of things going on. And I was just like, here for it, here for it. It was very much like a sci-fi book, which obviously it's a sci-fi romance, but it was more sci-fi heavy with a romantic subplot. It definitely still is a romance, but I'm upset because I thought it would be like many of the other alien romances that I read, where it's like book 1 is this couple, and book 2 is this couple, and book 3 is this couple. But I was getting to the 90% mark, and I was like, I don't see how you could possibly wrap this up in the next 20 pages. And I was correct. You cannot wrap it up in the last 20 pages. There is, in fact, a second book that directly follows the events from the first book. So here I was like, oh, I'm going to read down my KU TBR too. No, because I read this book, finished it, loved it, giving it 4 stars, and immediately downloaded the sequel. So I have the exact same number of books checked out on KU, but that was a really great day to read for me. I really had a lot of fun with that, and I think I've given you my full thoughts on it. 4 stars and not 5 stars, just because it lost me at some point. Some of the sci-fi was like very sci-fi. What was happening? I don't really understand all the moments, but I was here for all of them. So then here I am standing looking at my bookshelves wondering, what the hell do I want to read next? Nothing is really calling to me, and I do have to read tonight. So I saw Do Your Worst on my bookshelf, so I decided that is the next book that we're going to read for our day 3 read. This is a story about a curse breaker and a man who doesn't really want her to break the curse, kind of like rivals to lovers. He tries to get her fired, I believe, but he fails, so he just kind of lets it go. But she does not. She's like, you try to get me fired? Fuck you, I'm gonna curse you and your whole family. I don't think she literally curses him, but very much that tension. I'm hoping this will be a really fun palate cleanser. So that is the next book that I'll be reading for day 3 of this video. So as always, I'll see you with whatever first impressions I have. It is, in fact, Sunday, and I have finished Zero Dark Bloodthirsty, which is a very hard title to remember, but this is a direct sequel to American Werewolf in Space, which I know I told you all I would be reading Do Your Worst. But I decided that I actually wanted to read the sequel to the book that I had just finished because it ended on a cliffhanger and I wanted to know what happened. And what I would tell you is that I would class this book specifically more as a science fiction book with a strong romantic subplot before I would call it an alien romance. The final 20% of the story is definitely much more romantic, but for 80% of the story, it's war. Brutal realities of war. I am talking on-page death everywhere, the horrific things that are happening, the political maneuvering that has to happen, all of the horrible things that the Unity are doing. All of that is happening. It's very sci-fi, and it took me longer to finish than I anticipated. 1, because I didn't want to rush my reading experience, but 2, because the technology aspect of the science in this world definitely takes some time to grasp and to conceptualize. And I'm getting the sense this is a spanning war that will take several books. At this point, there's only 3 books in the series, but I'm getting the sense that it can't be wrapped up in 3 books. This is a ongoing thing, and the author seems to publish once a year, but that is what it is. I really enjoyed book 2. I like the romantic elements a lot, but I also thought the war was fascinating. I don't particularly love books about war though, so this book was a 3.5 for me instead of a 4 or 5. On Goodreads it's a 4 because I can't do half stars, but between you and I, it's 3.5 stars. I don't have much to say about it outside of that. I continue to like Jack and Ohem together. I think that they are a fun couple. Something that I really love is that Jack is not like a petite woman that you usually see in alien romances. Jack is 6'5", 6'6" in her human form, very much solid wall of muscle. In her other form, she is much bigger. She is very much the one dominating the battlefield, and I love that there's also this dynamic of just her not being the petite woman. She is the force behind a lot of things that are happening, but also she has this moment where she's talking to her mate and she's like, people assume that because I'm so big and like muscular that I must be into masculine things, and the reality is that that's not true. My favorite color is pink, and I want to live in Barbie's dream house, and that is what I want our home to be designed as, and I really like that aspect of the story. With that said, I now have the goal to finish 4 books in 2 days because I've been behind on this vlog. To be honest with you all, I did finish another book, but because I finished that book for a different reading vlog, I'm not counting it for this challenge. So far, we've read 3 books in this video. I meant to read a book every day, but instead, I will be reading 4 books in the next 48 hours. So come with me as I attempt to read that. The good news is I'm very much in a crafting mood today, so I want to listen to the audiobook for Darcy Coates' Whispering Dead series, so we're gonna do that in this video, and of course I'll see you with my update, and we will get back to the Rosie Danon book. It's just eyeballs fatigued, need audio.
Hi besties. I did mean to update you yesterday, but I didn't finish my book until pretty late at night. And as you all know, I hate filming at night just because the lighting is shit, which makes the quality of the video drop.
But the book that I finished last night was The Hollow Dead, book 4 in the Graveyard Keepers series. I've been calling it the Whispering Dead series because that is book 1, and I absolutely loved this. By the very nature of this being the 4th book in the series, I also believe it's the penultimate book. I believe Darcy has said that this will be a 5-book series. I can't tell you a lot about this, but just know the same things that I love, I continue to love. I love the relationships between the characters, this very strong found family element with an underlying current of the spooky with all of the ghosts that are in the graveyard and around them. I think that Darcy's premise of who the villain of this entire series is and why is such a unique and interesting one because of the way that it's layered, and it's just creepy. And we do get a resolution to something that does happen in the first book with our main female character. In this book, I can't tell you what it is because it'd be a spoiler, a very mild one, but still a spoiler. But I'm absolutely loving that element. A new favorite character of mine is Daisy the cat. I just love her. But Daisy's story in this one evolves in a way that I think is so fascinating. I'm ultimately giving this book 4 stars though, because of all of the books in the series, I think that this one falls into the category of potentially filler more than the others. And I hate saying that because that sounds really harsh, because what I actually mean is that the things that were happening here are necessary things to progress the story along. And it was certainly very interesting to read because I just love Darcy Coates and I love Darcy Coates' writing style and the storytelling. But when it comes down to it, not much actually happened in this book. We were just filling in necessary gaps to get to the conclusion of this story, which is why it's a 4-star read and not a 5-star read for me. Even though I enjoyed so many elements of it, I could recognize that this is just the stepping stone to the final chapter of this story. So then right after that, I started This Is How You Lose the Time War, because again, your girl has to fucking read. In order for me to read 7 books in 7 days, I have to finish 2 more books today. So I'm already about, I want to say halfway through This Is How You Lose the Time War, actually a little bit under halfway through. I picked this one because the audiobook is on Everend, but also because I own the physical book, so I can do a tandem read of it. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm really fucking confused. Really confused. Do I know what's happening? No. Do I understand their connection to each other? Kind of. It's very sci-fi, and the writing definitely takes a while to get into because it is quite poetic, but combine that with very complex sci-fi things that are happening. Having very poetic language with very complex sci-fi makes it a difficult read to really grasp what's going on. But the elements of this that I do enjoy are the letters between Red and Blue. I think that their letters to each other are just full of tension and flirtiness, but I'm also going to attribute a lot of that to the narrator, because the narrator for each character does the letters really well. It just has this kind of sultry undertone. The way that they speak makes it clear that they are flirting, but I think if I was just reading this physically, I wouldn't necessarily get the flirting playfulness that's happening, and the narrator is actually doing a really great job of bringing that tone in, because it very much speaks like they are flirting with each other. There is a playful banter in there that may not come across directly if I was just physically reading it. That said, besties, I'm going to finish that, then we're going to read Do Your Worst, and I'm need to read another book in today's timeline. It's already 1 p.m. For now, I'm going to get back to This Is How You Lose the Time War, and I'll update you when I finish. Okay, besties. I did in fact fail this challenge, but you know what? By this point in the video, you know that I failed this challenge. I did, though, last night on day 7 of this challenge, finish my 6th book, which is This Is How You Lose the Time War. I gave you my initial impressions, and despite the amazing job that the narrator did of actually narrating this book, because she was seducing me, I was being seduced by her voice alone, even though, did I understand what was happening in the story? Not at fucking all. Vague concepts that they're like time traveling spy agents doing this kind of pointless thing where they're constantly undermining each other to make sure that their individual worlds can exist, because one can't exist if the other one also exists, from what I understand. A lot of this is just like their missions and their letters to each other. And while the letters were certainly my favorite part, I can't help but feel like the whole time I was reading this, I was like, what? And I think this is because of the combination of the very, very flowery writing, almost leaning towards purple prose, with the high concept science fiction elements of this was just too much for me to really comprehend. My brain was like, I'm gonna try to decode this, and like occasionally I could see some scenes, but for the most part, I was like, what? I didn't understand. My brain was just not processing what was happening, which is a shame, but I liked the final, like, 20 minutes of this story the most, where the things that happen. I want to say that maybe if I read this in another time or like revisited the story, I would have a better understanding of what happens and like maybe love this, but I can't be bothered to do that. I don't care, and because I didn't fully understand this story, I find it hard to give it a rating, so I'm really just gonna settle on 3 stars, which means I don't have very strong opinions about it one way or the other. I was confused, and this wasn't the book for me. So that's one more book off of my TBR shelf. And to reassure you all, I didn't just throw in the towels. I spent last night until about 11 p.m. reading Do Your Worst by Rosie Danon. I was live, laugh, loving the whole time. The sense of humor in here is like exactly my sense of humor in this moment in time. Our main female character, our heroine, what's her name? Riley. Riley is a curse breaker, but she's from Philly, and I realized that right away because she's talking about her bar in Fishtown, and she feels like distinctly Philly to me, although she's from South Jersey. I used to live in Philly, so I was like, aw, like I appreciate like the references and the Eagles fans and like her bar and her neighborhood and all that stuff. And I love the fact that she's in Scotland trying to break this curse on the castle. That whole element was really fun, and what the author is doing here that's being done very well is that these two have like an insane sexual chemistry. But let me tell you the best part. Despite the fact that this guy here looks like Fuckboy McGee, sorry if you look like this man, in the book he's actually described as looking more like Superman, more like Clark Kent, which is like a running joke in his life because his name is Clark, and like he got kind of made fun of for that a lot. He wears like glasses and has like a very square jaw, and she's super into him, but he's also like super into her, which is so fun to see as well because they have this insane sexual chemistry. But she is also a plus size woman, at least is described as being very curvy, and he's very much into her too. Like just as much as she is insanely sexually attracted to him, he is insanely sexually attracted to her, and their banter is very, very, very funny. But I also just love all of the scenes of like this Scottish castle and them in the woods, and then I'm like trying to find like these artifacts with this underlying mystery of what happened all those centuries ago to lead to the curse, and all of that is just really fun to read. Plus all the hijinks in here. This is a very unserious story, which is just what I needed. I was not expecting a serious story, and thankfully that is not what I got. I will say I'm enjoying this a lot, but I'm going to fully recognize that Clark, our hero in this story, is straight up an asshole. Like, for real, for real, for real. This man is arrogant, but rest assured, our female character knows this about him and is like, I'm gonna read you to fucking filth, and tells him exactly who he is. He thinks that he is the victim in everything, when the reality is he's truly just like an awful person in a lot of circumstances. And she calls him out and says, you growing up having money but being excluded from society, like your upper wealth societies, because you weren't from generational wealth, is not the sob story you fucking think it is. So I can fully recognize that if you didn't like this story, I can see why. Clark is a dickhead through and through. And my channel is not monetized, so I can still swear all I want to on this channel, but I am going to finish it. It does read super quickly, so I'm already 51% of the way through the story. I have about 160 or so pages, not even, like 140 or so pages before I finish the story, so I will update you when I go ahead and finish it. But I'm going to tell you, I probably won't have much to say, but I will leave off here and tell you that this is a slow burn romance. Like, yes, they have insane sexual chemistry, and they spend a lot of time in this story together, which I'm appreciating, because I have noticed a trend in romance books where the two characters don't always spend a ton of time interacting. No, they're together throughout the entirety of this story. And even where I'm at, over 50% of the way through the story, ain't shit romantically happen between them. So I will finish this book and I'll see you with my update. Hello, besties. Welcome to the end of this video because I finally finished Do Your Worst by Rosie Danan. I'm not even going to tell you how much time has passed. Just know that time has passed. But I did end up really loving this. I think I told you in one of the previous clips that I was live, laugh, loving from the jump. I think that these two characters had such great chemistry. I love the Scottish Highland setting. Their banter was so freaking funny. And I love the subtle supernatural element here of the curse. It isn't like overtly supernatural. She believes in the curse, but you don't see the curse's influence directly in any kind of super paranormal way or way that couldn't be explained away rationally, but I still really love that element. I think that these two characters are so strong on their own, and I even love our hero's background with archaeology. The middle of the story did get a little bit iffy for me, not in like a bad way. It just started to drag a little bit, but also it's where our hero truly started to feel like an asshole. Not in the worst way possible, but he was very arrogant and very much had like a victim mindset. And yes, terrible things had happened to him, but he also in many ways allowed that to justify him being an asshole to other people, which I did not particularly love. And there's these dynamics that they're having where they're trying to hurt each other emotionally. Didn't love that, but then the story picked up right again like 50 or 75 pages later, and I love the end of the story and the way that they're trying to break this curse. Very silly, goofy ways. This was in general a really fun time. I think I would settle some point between the 3.5 to 4-star range. I really enjoyed this. If you want a lighthearted read or this premise sounds interesting to you, I think that it is well done, but I will warn you that you may find either of these characters extremely irritating, and they may not be to your taste. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. But I actually really like this book, and I think that if I reread this, I would enjoy it even more. So I'm going to keep it and make space somewhere on my 5-star shelf, and also pray that my move, fingers crossed, goes well. But with that said, besties, we are at the end of this video. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know that I did ultimately fail this challenge, but we still ended up reading 7 books in this video, and I personally had so much fun throughout it. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you did get to the end of the video, let me know if you've read any of these books or if you were surprised by my thoughts and reactions to any of the books in this video, and I am going to see you in my next one. Bye!